I don't know how familiar you are with the case against Tyler Robinson. One of the biggest, most controversial elements of this, and I've had the opportunity to talk to multiple lawyers on this as well as multiple law enforcement. There's a lot of conspiracies that are kind of hinging on the idea that all of this evidence is faked. Are there things that kind of pique your interest, or you're like, that doesn't seem quite right? I'd like to hear those as well. We got another great Dangerous Liberty podcast.
Not on this case. And I haven't dug into it. I think every conspiracy theory I've heard, I mean, you have to break Occam's razor in half, and you've got to go through some hoops and leaps to believe this, and believe that there's a massive amount of people involved in this conspiracy. Which,
no, I think you're completely right. And for those of you that don't know what Occam's razor is, it's the simplest, most obvious reason is probably going to be what the answer is. It's not going to be some far-fetched conspiracy theory. It's the most simplest reason is probably the answer.
I don't see it as a really complicated murder case. Now, it's sensationalized, and it is weird that you have one human snipe another one. That's not a typical murder. But aside from that, I've heard a lot to do and made about the round being was not ballistically matched. Well, it's degraded. They can't. I mean, they can. Anybody in the field can probably, if we were sitting around having a beer, it's like, yeah, 100% that's around. I mean, yeah. But it's missing just enough that I can't go in court and say it. That's like if I've got a fingerprint and I've got 2 solid matches, I know it's my guy, but I need 3. So I just got to hold on to it, look for something different. But no, I don't see anything out of the ordinary.
Is that the standard? Typically, you got to have 3 full prints?
Matches. You have your spirals and your loops on your fingers, right? Or all prints, really. In order for you to sit on the witness stand and say, yes, this latent fingerprint is the same as this one with so-and-so's name on it, right? His fingerprints.
Right.
You've got to have 3. When you lay them on, you got 3 points that match exactly.
Gotcha.
More the better, but if less than 3, it's like the DNA's. We'd like getting a DNA result back that,
It's only 1 in a million, not 1 in quintillion.
Or 50 in 100, right? He could be 50. Well, that's not very good odds, right? It's not enough to go, this is the guy. It's like he could be 1 of 50. That's a lot. But with every standard, and here's where I think this is going to clean up. Televised trial. We heard this preliminary hearing in Utah's a little strange, right? We almost heard the standard of evidence and the standard of convincing what we heard on that probable cause determination hearing is exactly what we hear in a grand jury. It's grand jury secret. So we were allowed reliable hearsay. That we won't hear that in court. They had, and the prosecution is only bringing enough evidence, not bringing their whole case. They're bringing just enough evidence to convince the judge more likely than not. And we absolutely know that's going to happen. But during the trial, that's where the Constitution comes in. No evidence comes in without being checked. The defense has an opportunity to check it. Everything has an opportunity to be cross-examined. This is why you don't do hearsay. You can't cross-examine the person that was heard, or that you heard say it, right? So if you're going to bring in something that was said, you bring in the person that said it, because the Constitution says he has a right to cross-examine witnesses against him. But the state will bring this in, and they will do it to nauseam. They will talk to you about the travel of the bullet. They will talk to you about the damage to the body. They will talk to you about every bit of that, more than you're going to want to know. They'll go into hours with officers on the stand on how one piece of evidence was collected over another and where it was. Go back to the OJ trial where the vials of blood stayed in the officer's pocket for damn near 7 hours. This is wrong. He shouldn't have done that. Do I think he planted blood? Probably not, but it's hard to say he didn't when he ran around with him in his pocket. But my point is that every bit of the evidence has a chain of custody. From the time it comes into law enforcement, it better be checked. And any defense attorney that's worth his weight in lead would challenge every piece of evidence there. At least check the chain of custody documents for inconsistencies. So I think there won't be any doubt, is my point. I don't think there'll be anybody that holds conspiracy after watching this trial It's just, they're general hospital watchers as well. But I believe the state will lay it out there. Right now, we've had a gag order. The only people being able to speak are the people that aren't under the gag order, and by the way, who also don't know anything. So we haven't really seen things that you might see in another case kick out because of the gag order, but there'll be no gag order when it comes to trial. It'll be televised, and I'm actually looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a very interesting criminal trial, but I don't think there's a snowball chance in hell that you're going to show that he didn't. I think everybody who's on the fence right now will be convinced after the trial.
Yeah, I'm not. There's a lot of people relying on a lot of money that I think they're going to, and their credibility, by the way. So I don't think, and there's just some people that obviously you're never going to convince. So I am curious.
Well, Gary, if I've got enough money, I can live without a little credibility.
Money replaces credibility real quick, huh? Some people. You're not wrong. You're not wrong with that. Yeah, I am curious to see how they're going to wiggle around and how they're going to cope with being so wrong so often for so long. It'll be interesting.
Don't you think that? What do you think they'll do on that? Right? I mean, they'll just go on about their life and do something else. I mean, I think a lot of this, when it comes to social media, it's the clicks and the sensationalism, right? I think if I just clipped the videos, the bad parts, and put them in there, and had people talk bad about police, I'd probably be Mr. Beast of the law enforcement world. But I still got to look in my mirror. I don't know about how much money I'd need to buy a mirror that makes me look better in the morning, but I'm not to that point. But I think these guys will go on. They were there doing it before,
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of them weren't, and that's the wild part of this. So this is like the gold rush of conspiracy theories, and there's so many channels that popped up because of this and pushing this pod slop, this conspiracy slop, and it's so lucrative. And I'll tell you right now, what I think some of the bigger ones that have really staked their claim on this whole thing, that are already saying that, that all the evidence is made up. He's a patsy. The defense is in on it. The parents are in on it. Charlie Kirk's not even dead. He's still alive. They're going to continue this, pushing all of that even after it's all said and done. And yes, they will end up having to move to something else because they're going to run out of material, but it'll be something similar. And that'll be a case study in of itself. So I don't know. Let's.
What do you think? Hang on. But what do you think drives people like that? We saw that with the Kennedy assassination. Elvis died, right? And he's still alive somewhere. What do you think drives people to these off the wall?
One of the things. I think there's a lot going on there. So one of the things I always try to tell people, like, you know what, we can't have this prejudice, and this is literally what it is, right? Like, we don't believe that if we were wronged by someone of some color or religion, like the next time we see another person of that, like we shouldn't judge them based on somebody else's whatever and have that affiliation.
Actions of another person, right?
Yeah, let's assess them individually, right? And see that I don't know, maybe it'll be their character, not the color of their skin, that caused the issue to begin with. I don't know. And I try to say that because I talk about that a lot, because like every one of these individual situations, you should judge individually, right? You don't, like, when you're investigating a crime, you don't say, well, you know what, last time somebody did X, Y, and Z, so this is probably what's going to happen with this, and you go with that. No, we follow the evidence, we follow the facts. So I get that a lot. Like, hey, there's JFK. Literally, this is a response. Like, why do you think this is a conspiracy? Oh, you don't know about JFK? If JFK, Charlie Kirk, like it's a default level of thinking, and it's a very prejudicial way to think about anything. And by the way, it's a preclusion, and that you're coming to before you even start. So now you're just looking for the evidence that's going to affirm whatever bias you have or motivated reasoning that you have. So that's what happens with this almost every single time. With that being said, look, I think we were all abused, especially during the Biden administration, right? I mean, our trust between COVID, January 6th, the conspiracy to frame Donald Trump, We have a shadow government literally working with MI6 amongst others that are trying to frame the president of the United States. So I understand that there's people that are extremely distrustful, and people have come to this default reasoning where it's like, I'm going to believe whatever's opposite of whatever the government says. Even though a lot of these people voted for Donald Trump and we got most of those people out, sure, there's still turds in there. And even though this is SBI, not necessarily the FBI, and it's local law enforcement, all these other things, but we've come to this default reasoning. And the other thing is like, I'm paying attention to the government, and I think that's where the threat is coming from. That I'm not paying attention to my six when now people are tricking me, and I'm going to believe them, but they're using the same psyop that was happening before, trying to undermine President Trump. They're doing the exact same thing. It's just coming from a different source. So I think there's a lot of that, and then there's a lot of the other thing. There's a lot of people that saw that this was very lucrative. And unfortunately, there's some people, whether we're talking about Candace Owens or people like Baron Coleman, that are very convincing. They're very compelling. They're entertaining to watch. And they've created a whole new genre. You were talking about the soap operas. Now we have this murder mystery, choose your own adventure, but also I get to participate. I've been deputized. And now I can become a sleuth, and I have had no purpose in my life. So there's lots of elements why people find this, are drawn to this. And some of them have just been so convinced. And the other part of this too, and I'm sure you were paying attention at the beginning of this, and we talked a little bit about this off the air, but the one thing that I remember that my radar was just pinging right away that I thought was odd. Within days of this taking place, we were flooded. We were flooded with palm guns, tunnels, the Bush shooter, 3 different camera guns, an iPhone gun. Like there was someone shooting from behind, someone shooting from off this build. Like there was so much going on that I was like, this isn't organic. And I really do, and I've talked about this a lot, I really do think this is a psychological operation that's being utilized and pushed by Iran, Russia, China. They hate Trump, and I think Europe's involved too, and our political adversaries as well. I think the left sees this as a very useful tool, and I think they're boosting these things to divide the right, ultimately in MAGA. And there's some other things going on there. So I think there's a lot of elements that are working against the truth. And the other part of it, I think there's a huge disconnect where people just don't understand how this could happen. It's like, it can't be as simple as what it is. And so there's some coping and some denial there. And I get it. The other thing I will say is, like, I had a lot of questions, and then I went there. And when you go to UVU and you see how much smaller that place is than it looks like on video, you see how you can just walk up to the roof. I go around and I see all the cameras that I know that we haven't seen footage from, but I know they have that footage. So I understand. And look, you and I were talking about this before the show too. It's like, we do have an atypical ballistic result. It was odd that the 30-06 didn't have an exit wound. I think there's a lot more plausible. Like there's 100 potential explanations for that. 99 of those are fairly plausible, but we're going to the least plausible one, and that's the one we're going to go with. And that is, I guess at this point, it's like Israel and the U.S. and maybe the French. I don't even know, the Freemasons, the Mormons, like all these people. There's this cabal of people that have come up with this highly sophisticated assassination plot, and man, they pulled it off perfectly to the point to where we didn't see them. We can't find any evidence of them. They pulled it all off, but they planted the wrong gun, and they didn't kill the patsy. Patsy's still alive. It gets a little bit nuts when it comes to that. But part of this is entertainment for sure. People find this extremely entertaining. So I want to get your perspective on 2 major elements. Because what I was talking about regarding all this flood of conspiracies is at the beginning of this, the palm guns, all these things, is like it poisoned the well for a lot of people. Those alone convinced a lot of people from different aspects that there was some larger conspiracy, and they won't let that go now, no matter how much evidence they've been shown. But one of the things from a law enforcement perspective that I'd like to hear about from you is, number one, you know, when we have TPUSA staff going, they have a crime scene and they're going and they're pulling SD cards. And like, they have just completely destroyed this crime scene. They're walking all over this crime scene. I'd like you to talk about that. And even going back to the crime scene is how a lot of people said they've paved over the crime scene. Now, I was there. I talked to law enforcement. Multiple agencies were there for 3.5 days, 24/7. The cop that I talked to said there was literally hundreds of people there. I don't know if that is hyperbole, but clearly a lot of people there processing that crime scene for 3.5 days, 24/7, before they turned it. And they were trying to get it reopened before, Monday was coming up, and college was back in session. What is your perspective on some of those hot takes, if you will?
All right, let's start with the crime scene.
Yeah.
How long do you expect law enforcement to hold it? There's got to be a point. Once you take an area, you've determined the crime scene, you process it for forensic evidence. And what you're looking to do is, one, find forensic evidence. Two, is to be able to recreate this in the future if you needed to, right? Where were everyone standing? Now, back in the day, you'd see body chalk lines, right? You remember this? We don't do that anymore because now we can map it. They can bring out a laser device, spin it around,
and they did,
mark
by the
everything. Of course,
yeah, so we actually have pictures, folks. For those you don't know, there was 3D mapping of that entire scene. That I don't know who brought them. I'm assuming that it was probably the federal government, but it could have been SBI. Who knows?
Well, the sheriff's office probably has it. This is not high technology anymore. They started doing that 26 years ago. We've been doing this, but they'll mark it out. They'll mark out with everything that was theirs. And because here's the thing about investigation, you don't know what's important until it is. You know how long you've got it. I don't know. Is that bubblegum wrapper important? Is that cigarette outside by the window important? I don't know until it is. So you try to take everything or be able to memorialize it so that you can show it again later. Once that's done, your crime scene's done. You turn it back up. It's not your property as police. It doesn't belong to the federal government. It doesn't belong to Candace Owens. And it doesn't matter how long people think they should stay there. Police have one shot at that well. They'll do as good a job as they're going to do. Some do better than others. I think in this case, they probably did a pretty good job. And once again, where he died, it's not a complicated crime scene. And the best thing about it is we've got it on what? Multiple views of video. This is much better than me going out and doing chalk outlines and trying to ascertain exactly who was standing where. So they've got that.
Now, Joe, when you say it's not a complicated crime scene, are you taking into account the exploding microphone or the hand? So here's one theory. He was actually electrocuted by his hand mic. Then his mic exploded. And then they drug him off in the car. He was fighting for his life in the car. They broke his neck manually, his security team, and then they shoved a pre-fired bullet into the wound from the exploding microphone. I don't know if you've heard that, but
it's like I said, Gary, you don't know what's important. Exploding. I mean, and these are ridiculous, right? These are things that would be first off, they were never brought up as, I'm sure, as theories that the investigators like, let's check the microphone because this might not have been a shot. It has all the tales of a shot. Now, whether you like the wound or not, bullets do weird shit. I love it when they bring the CIA in as far as law enforcement. CIA is not cops. They don't investigate anything.
Anything domestic, yeah. Yeah, so now going back to the crime scene, I hear all the time, man, look at this guy. He broke so many laws. He violated this crime scene. He freaking corrupted the crime scene by taking the SD cards out of the camera as people were coming up, by the way, stealing hats and everything else. Talk a little bit about the laws of that.
There's no law. I mean, if these cameras belong to that person and he removes his SD cards, now as law enforcement, I come to you and say, hey, I need those SD cards. Like I would come and knock on your door. Hey, can I get your Ring doorbell? Well, no, you can go pound sand. Okay, well, if I've got enough probable cause, I'll get a warrant. I'll come back and I'll grab those. And of course, in this case, you would. I probably think that it was more like, I don't want these to be stolen. These are going to be important, and that's why they were removed. But no law was broken there. The only time a law would be broken, there was some sort of a document that said that you can't take these or leave these. They don't belong to the police until you lock the crime scene down, which technically it was not at that time. No offense. Yeah. And I would challenge anybody out there that says so to show it to me in the statute.
And then, my question, if that's your train of thought and that's what you believe, like, where does the crime scene end? Does everybody just have to stay still? Is everybody's cell phone that's there, is that part of the crime scene? And if you remove that, have you desecrated the crime scene? Or like, it's so crazy. I'm sure you see it on X and everywhere else. I don't know if you're on X, but if you are, I'm make sure I go follow you. Yeah. But it's like we have these ex-lawyers and ex-detectives now, and like, I don't know where they get their information, but it's like 99% wrong. But man, they sure do spew it as fact because they saw, an episode of CSI where they did that once or whatever it is.
I'll be honest with you, I think movies and television series, they're so bad that most police officers can't watch them. Yeah. It's like watching, honestly, it's like watching
military
war
movies.
There's some out there that you can get through, but there's some, it's like, man, this is all make believe. They didn't even try to hit it right. But like The Wire, people tell me The Wire was great. Wire was great. Well, I did that. That's what I did. I was a dope cop, worked in a hiding unit. That's what I did. And there are a lot of aspects to that are somewhat accurate. But when it comes to the legalities of it, like, I don't need a warrant for this. Get out of here. It's all BS. And it's emotional. Law and order, right? This is supposed to be a courtroom drama. There's not drama in a courtroom. It gets sad sometimes, but there's not supposed to be drama. You don't there's no Perry Mason moments in a courtroom. They're kind of dry. They were meant to be that way. Founding fathers said they wanted us to have trials without the passion of the times. They want it to be based on laws. We're a nation of laws. People say we're a nation of laws. They don't know what that means. That means we're a nation of laws. Laws matter. Your emotions don't.